My friend Dom Giordano, talk show host, of course, on WPHT radio in Philadelphia, former school teacher as well. Dom, how are you, sir?
Very good, Steve. Congratulations and everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and it's always great to talk to you. I always love that. And, we got so much. If I sound aggravated or hyped up, I was just doing a story and playing the sound bites of Obama blaming the United States in part for the gun violence in Mexico.
Well, that's what I ended the show with. It came down late and getting lathered up on a Saturday. The ironies of it, and the man knows no boundaries.
Oh, the apology tour continues, and he vows to keep pushing for Second Amendment limits in the United States to protect not only Americans, but to protect Mexicans, which is, just exactly what I'm sure people of the U.S. want to do. They go to bed every night so guilty that they're causing all the problems in Mexico. And by the way, Fast and Furious, you ever hear of that, Mr. President? Oh, my God. Anyway, it doesn't pay to get aggravated, but I can't help myself. But, then I read the story that we're going to talk about and the stories we're going to talk about, Dom, and it's just amazing. First, let's talk about in your neck of the woods. A Philadelphia mom found in her son's backpack the book, the novel 50 Shades of Grey, and she was all ticked off naturally. Turns out the teacher who works at Eastern University Academy Charter School, according to the school, and maybe you know more than I do at this point, purchased the book with his own money for independent study time or whatever. And I don't know how it wound up in, with this kid personally, or if there was any connection directly that he bought it for this kid. But nonetheless, it's a book with, what you might say, as the mother says, pornographic passages and type of readings. And why any teacher would purchase that and then let a student have it is beyond me.
Yeah, and it's not an obscure book. I mean,
No.
This is one of the huge bestsellers. And I think, again, in theory, what the guy was trying to do, because I've actually had to reach these reluctant readers, meaning they wouldn't read a book no matter what. He asked for suggestions and all that. And Steve, within boundaries of a young adult book, something like that, which might have a passage or two that's a little bit racy, that's one thing. But this is just the outright hottest erotic novel out there, and it's only a ninth grader. And also, East Falls is the type of thing where this isn't going to fall between the cracks in Philadelphia. These are pretty educated parents. They're going to be up on this. It's mind-boggling. What were you thinking type of stuff.
Right. And here in this case, the school says it was a serious mistake. They agree, but they don't plan to fire the teacher. I don't know what the latest is, if they plan any disciplinary action at all, or if they've given any further explanation. Have they?
Minimal. He might be suspended. He might briefly and all, but firing over this, I don't know his full track record.
Right.
But absolutely, it is a serious thing, and it's a type of thing where it's almost hard to believe no one there would check and that he had carte blanche to buy something like this. It doesn't appear to be some guy trying to indoctrinate, but the judgment factor here is just way out of proportion. That's why it's making news that you saw it. It's not an obscure book where there's some dispute. This is the granddaddy of it. It's been talked about more than any book out there.
Yeah, no, okay. Now, if you put that together with the next story, where a substitute teacher in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, was fired for giving a student a Bible, and this teacher has now filed a complaint. The teacher is named Walt Tutka. He's claiming religious discrimination as well as retaliation. He says that his persecution began back in October, a day when he was working as a sub at the school. He alleges that he said to his student, who happened to be standing last in line, "The first shall be the last, and the last shall be the first." And that, of course, is a reference to a verse seen in a handful of different times in the gospel. And long story short, he bought gave the kid a Bible to check it out and to see if where the phrase came from, etc. And now the teacher's fired.
Yeah, and this could have been an innocent thing. It's the type of thing where it's amazing the references kids don't get. And the guy said something offhand, I think, and it was going to show it to him out of the Bible. I don't see indoctrination. That's the thing. Left, right, whatever. When it's indoctrination, it's out of bounds. This doesn't seem to be that at all.
Right. He asked the kid if he liked the Bible, if he owned a Bible, because the kid, he said he'd never heard of the phrase and the quote, and he said, "I don't." So he gave him the pocket Bible that he happened to be carrying. And I guess in this day and age, it's better to give somebody 50 Shades of Grey than to give them a pocket Bible.
That would be in a school district. They can deal with one. The other, though, horrible judgment if you give the holy book. No, I can't have that.
And we're talking to Dom Giordano, a radio talk show host at WPHT in Philadelphia, also does a TV show, and of course, former teacher. All right, well, and now I'm going to read stories, and it's kind of unfair, because there are how many millions of teachers in the country, and you could attest to that better than I can. And there's bad in every profession, there's bad in every walk of life, but when it comes to a teacher, who's charged with protecting, and not protecting, but dealing, and we give our kids to our teachers every day. These stories stick out like really sore thumbs. And for instance, in Freeport, Texas, a high school teacher, she had an illicit relationship with a student, and this came to light after she showed up at an after-prom party with tattered clothing, no shoes, and she went and got the kid, and they had sex, and then this whole thing came to light. And you do hear, I mean, you tell me, were these kinds of things always going on, and we never heard much about them, or is it that now with I don't know, because of Facebook and texting and the new social media, are these types of violations now on the increase?
I think they are, Steve, and you're exactly right, because of the social media and that kind of breakdown. And I don't remember ever seeing the number of female teachers that were involved in this manner, and it opens up a whole different wave of things. Is it the same thing? Is it that severe? I mean, there are actual websites that chart the number nationwide that are involved in this, and some of these people are pretty young, out of college, whatever. They start maybe innocently enough, and that's why some school districts now have banned Facebook or texting students back and forth, and I think that's a good policy.
Yeah, no, I agree. And in this particular case, this teacher, she's married, she's a mother, 25-year-old high school teacher, and now she's been jailed for having this sexual relationship with a 16-year-old student. And now on another note, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. Whether you agree that on the conclusion I make, I don't know. But when a female teacher does this and it's against an underage boy, it's never called rape. The teacher, sure, she's frowned upon, she's fired, whatever. In this case, she's put in jail, rightfully so. But there's almost joking around. Oh, the kid's lucky. Oh, I wish it happened to me. Oh, I wish my son. Or it doesn't have the same gravitas as a crime that if a male teacher did it to an underage girl.
I would answer this way, and I don't know if I'm being politically incorrect or correct here. I agree we shouldn't, by the justice system, we should have the same standard. I agree with you on that. I do think in certain circumstances, though, there are differences there. Now, I may be old school on that, Steve, and I may be off the mark.
No, go ahead.
I do think there are differences at times, though, and I understand what the fear is more of the male teacher. But when it comes to a legal matter, when it comes to that, they ought to be treated exactly the same way.
All right, now I got one more for you, which again speaks to your tenure as a teacher.
Okay.
And I don't know how you feel. We haven't talked about this, but I would assume that you favor merit pay. And there was a lawsuit by Florida's teachers union over the merit pay law, and it was dismissed today. A circuit court judge ruling that the 2011 law did not violate teachers' constitutional rights, which is what they had argued. Some I don't know how it infringed on their constitutional rights to be paid based on merit when you have a contract with the locality. But I would assume, based on your political philosophy, that you do favor merit pay.
Oh, tremendously. And Steve, I think I've never seen more misnomers, and I know you've tried to do the same thing with this, that merit pay doesn't have to be based on test scores, and it's not based on who has the brighter kids. In fact, if you have the brighter kids, it's called a value-added thing. What value does the teacher add, say, from third grade to fourth grade based on testing and any number of other array of evaluations? That's what you get paid on, not who has the brighter kids. In fact, if you had kids that weren't doing as well, you'd have a better chance at pulling them up and being paid more. Every other profession, including talk radio that I can think of, you're paid based on merit. This ought to be an objective lesson, and it's shocking how many teachers are just mind-boggled over this concept.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They called it they said it would take away their collective bargaining rights, which they consider a constitutional right. And
this is an add-on. It's an addition
absolutely
to the base salary that you get. And they're never going to see teachers. I think there are teachers out there, or some of them are worth $500,000 a year or something like that. Others I wouldn't let walk the dog. And we ought to be able to differentiate them. That's where people like Michelle Rhee and others come out. and that's why she's so vilified, because she's on to something.
Michelle Rhee is so wonderful. They should clone her and put her in charge of education in every state in the union. Hey, Dom, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks very much.
Take care. Dom Giordano, ladies and gentlemen, WPHT Radio in Philadelphia.